super thin skin, held up longer than I was falling.
Welcome to Center Stage, the documentary podcast. Each week, our group of intrepid researchers and music archivists dig through the record crates of the world, looking for that one artist to take center stage. Using a patent-pending algorithm and spirited debate, we pick one artist. Once that is settled, we invite that artist into Thunder Love Studio to chat with your hosts Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. When we're lucky, they say yes. Our mission with Center Stage is simple: to make sure the recorded work of artists remains, or in some cases lands on, the cultural radar. We invite you to sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us.
This week, we welcome music supervisor Tricia Halloran into Thunder Love Studio. In addition to being a music supervisor for film and television, Tricia writes the Brave New World newsletter on Substack. The newsletter highlights the best of indie rock and pop, personally vetted by her. In this episode, we've asked Tricia to peel back the curtain behind the world of music supervision, the ideal job for the music fan and all of us. Without any further ado, here is our conversation with Tricia Halloran. Tricia Halloran, welcome to Center Stage.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You are a music supervisor.
Correct.
Now, Jeff and I, we came in loosey-goosey. I think I have but one question. What does a music supervisor do?
Supervises music, obviously. What does that exactly mean? So
Yes.
I work with film and TV producers and directors to source and help negotiate and sometimes create the music that appears in their projects. I generally am focused on the pre-existing music or maybe songs that we have written and recorded, not so much the score, the background instrumental score, which is usually done by a composer, just to specify. Although I do commonly work with the composers and help the filmmakers find composers. But my main thing is the pre-existing songs that go into a project.
Okay. And do you rely on your own knowledge, or how do you mine this?
Yeah, every project is really different, which is one of the main things that's appealing about it. No year is like the other year. No month is like the other month. No day is even like the other day. So you go into it. I mean, I guess I'm not an actor, but I assume somewhat how an actor does. You prep for what's in front of you. So I worked on a project that was set in the late 1800s, early 1900s, kind of a Western thing about Texas and Mexico. And I had to become an expert in public domain songs. What songs could we have for free that were written around that time? Because a lot of the copyrights from that particular era have expired by now. And sheet music was the records of the time. So I now have like a really fun collection of sheet music books, songs from that era. So I became an expert on that for that project. And I'm trying to think of another good example. Just whatever the project is in front of you, you sort of become, well, I just did one project that was set in Jamaica and one that was set in, well, one that was a country music docuseries. So then I became an expert in those genres at the time. So you sort of just educate yourself and make of it, what you can. You become proficient as required.
What is your preferred genre? What do you listen to in your spare time? Or do you listen to music in your spare time?
Sometimes not. Sometimes I just want there to be quiet, definitely.
Yeah.
But I love music. That's why I got into this. And my genre is indie rock, although, as I'm sure you well know, that's not really a genre, although it kind of is now. So yeah, indie music is what got me into loving music. And that's still my first passion. I'm commonly trying to find a way to sneak some indie artists into, a more popular maybe project. What about this artist? That might be huge, soon. You never know. I just get the thrill out of supporting the bands that are working so hard and maybe don't have the audience that I think they should. I think this person's really talented. I want more people to hear them. So
right.
Is that born from any one source of inspiration? I mean, I think back to some of my favorite soundtracks, and some of them you kind of hear, like Garden State, for example.
Yes, like Garden State. Yeah. I think. I mean, my beginning in music was more from the radio perspective. So I started as a volunteer at KCRW and then eventually got an airship there. So KCRW at that time was all about, bringing up the little guy and playing the artist that nobody else had ever heard of yet. So I think that became embedded in my musical DNA really early on. My mentor was Deirdre O'Donoghue, and she played popular bands as well. This was in a time when really besides K-Rock, which played a great alternative mix, there wasn't anywhere else to hear, music that was not in the top 40. So she had a lot more latitude. She could play things that no one else played very easily. It's a little harder now because there's so many indie things breaking through and different places to hear music. It's harder to really be unique in that space, but she was. So she definitely, I think, passed on to me that idea of championing the underdog. And just there's so much. I imagine it's like if you own a gallery or you're an art dealer and you just have this amazing artist that you just think should be much more popular and everyone should see. You're going to put them in your gallery and get them out there. And that's how I feel. But I can hear this. I know this person has so much talent. This song is slaying me. I want everyone to hear it. If they just heard it, they would love it. So that's where that all comes from.
Very cool. Now, music supervision is not something someone studies or goes to school for. What was your pathway into it?
I think actually now there wasn't when I started, but I believe currently there are programs in music supervision at Berklee School of Music. I think there is. And I know UCLA, the extension program, the nighttime classes, they offer more than a few music supervision classes, which is mainly a music supervisor standing up there and saying, here's how it's done. Only very relatively recently, a guild of music supervisors was formed. One of their main missions is to educate and train young people coming into the profession, because it is a little haphazard still. And its rise is directly related to how easy it is digitally to move music around now. You couldn't do what I do now in the days when there was just one master recording, on a tape of a song. And how would you, get that to the film set or, first play? I don't know. It would be so much more convoluted without digital capabilities. So the fact that suddenly music has just popped into TV shows and films like all the time is related to that. And so that's why as a profession, it's definitely come up in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. I got into it, being a radio DJ at KCRW, where you're picking all your own music, and there's a certain ethos there of trying to play things before anyone else plays them. it sort of gave me the skill set that is very similar to music supervising. And in fact, a lot of KCRW DJs did become music supervisors. So it's an advantage in my field to know about a lot of music that other people don't know about yet. So say my artist wants Pearl Jam and they can't afford Pearl Jam. Do I know a band that's maybe the next Pearl Jam that I can have for a lot? Yes. Or do I know a band that can create a great cover version of a song because we can't afford the original song, but I want a really cool sounding cover? So that same amount of knowledge that is helpful when you're trying to create a persuasive, great on-air radio show translates well to music supervising. So I was at KCRW. I seemed like most of my waking hours there for a period of time because it was a lovely place to be. And through those relationships, somebody contacted me and wanted me to music supervise their indie film, which I did. That film never ended up coming out. I happened to also have a friend who was a band manager and a music supervisor. She had got her training working as an assistant under a music supervisor, and she just laid it out for me. I mean, it's relatively simple. It's like, here's the set of requirements you need to negotiate. Here's how you find who owns a song. There's not that many steps. The steps can become very convoluted. And when you have a volume of songs, it can be really time consuming. And sometimes songs are more complicated than others. But the basics of it is you need to go to the people that own the song and get the rights that you need for your film or TV show. So in that sense, and there's people, 90% of the clearances I do, I'm dealing with the same 20 people at record labels and publishers. So they're people whose job it is specifically to deal with me. So it's not like I'm paving a new road, I'm just dealing, we're just like sending emails back and forth. Like, I need this song for this project. How much is it going to be, et cetera. So I just, I kind of learned it on the job, and my friend taught me the basics of it. And then I just learned from experience. I got offered the chance to interview for a TV show called Men in Trees on ABC, again, through someone I knew from KCRW. And, I think when you hire a music supervisor, it's probably not super clear whether they know what they're doing or not. Did I know what I was doing? I mean, sort of. I think by then I had been music supervising commercials for a while. Okay. So I definitely, the whole clearance thing was, getting easier and more second nature. TV is slightly different kettle of fish, but not really. So I just dove in and just did it. Like many professions, just, put me in, coach. I'll figure it out.
Now, is there a difference? This is a question I've always wondered. Is there a difference in what you have to pay? Say, for example, I want to use in my film a song like Stairway to Heaven. Not that I ever would, but Stairway to Heaven. Is it less expensive to have somebody cover that song than it is?
It is less expensive. I mean, unless you have, depending who you can have cover it.
Well,
yes,
sure.
It should be. If you had Van Morrison cover it, no, not so much.
Okay.
It is less expensive, and here's why. When you license a song, you're licensing two separate but somewhat equal entities. You're licensing it from the person that wrote the song. Mm-hmm. That would be the members of Led Zeppelin. And you're licensing what we call the master recording. It's confusing, but they're called sides. I don't know why. No one's ever explained it to me. The publishing side is the side of the people that wrote. Think of it as the half of the song of the people that wrote the song. The master side is the people that recorded the song. So if Tricia Halloran recorded Stairway to Heaven and I paid for it myself and there was no label involved, I would own the master recording of that song. But you couldn't license it unless you also licensed the publishing half of the song from the Led Zeppelin songwriters. Usually those people get the same amount of money, but in the case of Tricia Halloran versus Led Zeppelin, they would not get the same amount of money.
All right.
So you would still, if you paid Led Zeppelin, you would pay, let's just say $50,000 to the writers and $50,000 to the label, the record label that owns the recording. If you licensed my version, you'd still pay $50,000 to Led Zeppelin. And sometimes they charge you more, by the way, because they're not getting their half of the recording paid for, and they can do that. And then you're paying me $5,000. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
We recently had a guest on who, in addition to having a fantastic band, also works in an ad agency, and talked about reaching out to some heroes of his for licensing. And I don't think I'm talking out of school sharing this. He shared with us that the Reverend Horton Heat, they wanted to use one of their songs, and they thought, oh, well, Hollywood is calling. There must be $1 million check attached to this. And it ended up being, a regional ad, I think broadcast only in Atlanta, something like that. And it wasn't that much money. But the artist certainly thought, oh, I'm going to be on TV or I'm going to be in a movie, here's a payday.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of that negotiating of rate is a factor in ultimately the artist's interest in saying yes or no?
Let's see. I mean, there's almost so many different combinations of things that there's no one answer, but I would say I don't commonly run into a situation that you're describing. I'm not saying it's never happened. It has happened, but I wouldn't say it's a daily thing. Mostly artists are letting their labels or their publishers handle the deals with me. They're not getting directly involved unless it's someone I know or it's an unsigned band. Sometimes the unsigned artists are the most work, quote unquote, because they like what you're saying, that everything has to be explained to them step by step. Here's how it works. Here's why there's 2 different fees here, everything. And they don't know what to expect. But also to some artists like that, $500 is a lot of money. $3,000 is a lot of money, and they're just happy to have it. Whereas other much more popular artists, they do a sync every week, and they're just whatever, let the record label handle it. There's generally broadly speaking, there's silos of range of money for different things. So like you're saying, a regional ad, commands this much on this scale from the small artist to the big artist. A movie money is very different than TV money. It's a lot more expensive if it's a real movie, like a movie that's going to be, in theaters with a major distributor. That's on a scale of 10 different than TV money usually. Yeah. Okay. But there's a lot more TV. So, if I license my song 10 times, to 10 TV shows, I'm probably making as much as one movie placement. So, it can be more lucrative in the long run, I think. So I think I definitely run into people that have misconceptions about how it works. Not necessarily the one you're describing, but similar, where they don't understand how long it's going to take them to get paid. Because I'm very like, I need this now. You got to sign this. You have to approve this. My show is airing this, going to final mix this week. And then they're like, okay, where's the check? I'm like, yeah, that's going to be another year, but hang in there.
Really?
Oh, it can be. Because if you're ABC, if it's a TV show, well, if it's a film, that film might not come out for another year. If it's a TV show, even though they've mixed it, then they might still be shopping for a distributor. I've worked on indie films. It takes from when we start to when we finish the film, it's 5 years. And I might have licensed music at the beginning of that process that then by the time they finally finish the film, then they shopped to distributors, then they re-edit the film because the deal they got is different than what they thought. And for TV, the problem is ABC, for example, I'm just picking on them. They license so much music and even though I've negotiated the terms, it still has to go through a legal contracting process. So then Universal Records has to send a contract to ABC, and you would think these things would be form. They kind of are, but it just has to churn through legal departments. And then that has to get signed. And then after that, then the check gets sent out. It takes a long time. It definitely can be 6 to 12 months to get paid from a network.
Wow. I wouldn't have thought that.
So the smartest artists just think, right? I know, because it aired, right? You saw it, but we can air it based on my deal. It's the short form deal. That's just how it has to work. And then the long form could take longer. It's obviously to the advantage of the networks to do it that way, but they've got the money. So the smartest artists are the ones I usually try to warn people. I'm like, look, this isn't your Christmas money. This is your summer money. And they understand. And The smartest ones are like, oh yeah, I figure it's just a bonus whenever it comes in. I'm not counting on that to like re-roof my house or anything. I'm just, when it comes, it'll be great. That's the smart way to do it. But
what's one placement of a song that you were like, yes, I got that one? That was a real challenge for you.
Forgot to do my homework on that. Dang it.
You can make it up. You can make it up.
Explain a little more.
Well, for example,
like one that was difficult to clear or hard to get.
There's a scene in a movie and you're like, I know the perfect song. Because you mentioned this in Kevin Alexander's piece. Taillights Fade by Buffalo Tom would be a great track to have in this particular scene. Am I going to be able to get it? And then you had a lot of challenges getting it. And when you finally got it, you were like, yes.
Right. Oh my God, there's so many. Let's see. Let me think about that. This is hopefully an interesting story, but the one that springs to mind creatively, I didn't actually choose the music, and I don't know how you can play this cut, but it was a Jason Reitman film called Tully. And there's this scene where the two lead characters in the film are driving from like New Jersey into New York City for the night. And after 90% of our music was already cleared and we were on budget, barely, but we were on budget. He then says, Tricia, I want them to play an entire Cyndi Lauper album while they're traveling. We'll hear 30 seconds of each song. It'll show like the time, the time lapse as they, spend 2 minutes on this montage drive. And I was like, you want to license 10 Cyndi Lauper songs? And I tried to pitch other ideas because Cyndi Lauper is a co-writer. So that means she didn't write she writes with people, different publishers. If you used, say, Alanis Morissette, she writes all her own songs. So I could go to one publisher and one record label and make a deal. 10 songs, I could pay the price of one song for, 20 seconds of 10 songs. You see what I mean? But with Cyndi Lauper, there was probably 10 publishers involved.
Wow.
All trying to split up. So this is a case you just have to be strategic. So I thought, okay, what is the amount of money it would take to get someone interested in this? And I told Jason, you got to give me, I don't even remember, you got to give me X amount of money. And he got it from the distributor. And then I went first to the record label side because those, at least that was a one deal, right? With one record company. And I got them on board with it, saying, I'm going to license 10 songs. And this is, let's just say we had 50 grand. I don't remember what we had. We had 25 grand for the labels and 25,000 for the publishers. So I thought if I get the label on board, then the publishers will kind of have to be like, well, we'll take the same amount, right? Even though it's split up differently. So I did that first, or maybe we got Cyndi. I think I arranged, so I think Cyndi first and then the record label, or maybe simultaneously. I actually got Cyndi a screening of the film so she could appreciate, because it's a great film. And she screened it, and then she was in, I think probably simultaneously I was talking to her record label, and they agreed to the deal. And then I went to Cyndi's publisher, who had maybe, they didn't have 100% of any song, but they obviously had a portion of every song. So, I mean, it was all over the place. Like she would have 50% of one song, and then she had 20% of another song, 10% of another song. So whatever percentage they had, they agreed to split the same amount of money that the record label had taken, 25,000. It was more than that, but split by whatever their percentage was. Then I had to go to each individual co-writer and say, here's what your portion is going to be. You have 10% of a song, and every song is getting $7,500, And I kind of had to sell them all on the higher concept of it. No one's ever done that. And it was just this, thing Jason wanted to do. So I just felt really happy that I could deliver that for him. He doesn't want to worry about the nuts and bolts of all that. He's just like, this is what I want to do. Make it happen. And we made it happen, and it's a great scene. So, but that was probably the most amount of effort I put into, clearing a set of songs over the course. It's kind of an interesting one.
you talk about getting Cindy on board, and it seems like in your line of work, the artist's permission or sign off is an important part of that. Have you ever pitched an artist a movie or television appearance, and the artist said, "Hate it, no thanks"?
Funny you should ask that, because it happened to me today.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not going to mention exactly the specifics, but sorry, I'm just not going to. But I think that filmmakers get the idea they can have whatever song they want because they see so much licensing all the time. They don't see the denials. They just see, people are putting music everywhere. And to be honest, 98% of the time, people do say yes.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it was a smaller film. I don't even really actually have a good understanding why we got denied. There's only 3 songs in this film, and there was like a kind of a half denial on one of them, but I got around that one. That one they eventually said yes, and then this other artist is just not having it. I mean, we got denied, we went back, we got denied again, we went back a third time, we're still denied. So I've had a long conversation today and last week with the filmmaker about why that happens, because he just can't wrap his head around it, right? It's his film, it's his baby. It's, he thinks it's the greatest thing in the world. And maybe it is, but every artist just doesn't want to be a part of every single thing they see. And every artist doesn't even necessarily see. In fact, it's pretty rare for an artist to actually see the scene with their song in it. That's only asked for because there's just too much volume of it. So it's rare. It's rare that an artist requires that kind of approval. I will say I cleared this beautiful Tracy Chapman song, Fast Car, as part of the country music thing I did, because Luke Combs covered the song. They played it on the Grammys together. It's the most moving scenario.
A fast car, I wanted to get to anywhere. Maybe we make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove.
You got a fast car, and I got a plan. Get inside of here, been working at the convenience store. Managed to save just a little bit of money. Won't have to drive too far, just across the border and into the city. And you and I can both get jobs. Finally see what it means to be living.
Problem. Here with the bottle, that's the way it is. He says his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like his. My mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. I said, somebody's got to take care of him. So I quit school, and that's what I did.
Got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or leave or die this way.
So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast, I felt like I was gone. City lights lay out before us. Your arms done nice right around my shoulder.
Be someone. Be someone.
her team required seeing the exact clip, how it was edited, everything that we were saying about the song and the whole segment. And I had to send it to them, and Tracy herself viewed it and approved it. That's very rare. Usually the artist is given the manager some parameters and said, I just don't want gun violence, happening while my song's playing or whatever. And then the publisher knows that. In this case, I don't know what it was. Level of taste, I don't know. And I know the manager of the artist, so it even felt a little more like, oh man, I didn't even get any pull on that one. But it happens. I guess this is a short answer to your question. So yes, it does happen. It is rare though. But it always can. That's why that's partly contributes to this a little bit of a stressful job sometimes, because when a producer's asking you for a song, or you've even pitched a song, there's no real guarantee you're going to get it. You're probably going to get it, but there's that 1% chance until you really have the approval that you're going to have to say no to the producer, the director, the writer. And nobody likes to hear that.
As we were preparing for this conversation, Keith and I kind of reminisced about, what are your favorite perfect placements? We've each got a unique answer to that question. As someone in the role, I imagine that the way you watch TV and film is entirely unique from the average viewer. I mean, do you admire other people's work when you watch a scene and the song is perfect? You go, oh, that's great.
I do. But I'm fairly particular, as you could probably guess. Sometimes I watch things and I have occasionally I have a negative, like, that song, I don't like it there. Or I don't like the whole vibe they went for. And every music supervisor works in partnership with the director. So I can't even blame, I'm not saying it was the music supervisor's issue. It could have been the director. Sometimes directors have, put songs in that I heartily disagreed with, maybe even tried to talk them out of, but it's their project. I can't tell them what to do exactly. I try sometimes. But probably the one scene that always comes to mind when people talk about the perfect placement is in Almost Famous, when they sing Tiny Dancer on the bus. Mm-hmm. You remember that? That movie? Yeah. That I thought was such a moment. That was really, really well done. And the other show recently that I'm quite envious of that I did not work on is that show called Sex Education.
I haven't seen it.
You know that show?
I know it.
Fantastic. And the music in it, every placement is perfect. I literally would not change a single thing. There's this one scene where, I actually forget the song, which is kind of ironic, but there's this one scene where these girls, so it's about high school kids, and learning about sex, and it has a funny premise, and it's shot in Australia, I think, but it's not like they don't name a particular country that it's in. It's just kind of European-ish and boarding school-ish. It's not really a boarding school, but anyway, it's they're struggling. They're teenagers, and so there's this one, and there's a lot of shifting alliances. But there's this one scene where the girls all, even girls that have been enemies or whatever, they all end up. One of them's having a hard day, and they all end up at a junkyard, beating the shit out of an old car. Like literally, like one's on the roof, like beating the shit out of the car. They're breaking all the windows. Just like all the female anger that's been bottled up for generations is coming out in this one scene. I forget what the song is, but it was maybe like Sleater Kinney or something like that. It was just like a fantastic song. And I was just there's so many good placements in that series. So that's a definite tip of the hat. I don't know the music supervisor. I'm sure I looked it up. But that's a good one for that.
Awesome. Do you pay by the second? Is that a thing? Because I've heard. Is that funny. A thing?
I mean, it kind of is. It's tricky because, no, the answer is no, you don't really pay by the second. But again, there's so many different ways. Every project is its own kind of puzzle. So I worked for a little while assisting on this show called The Sing Off. Remember where they brought a cappella groups on and they would sing, they competed like who's the best a cappella group. So they pre-cleared over 500 songs.
Wow.
Every season, so that they could say to the contestants, here's a list, choose a song. And what they developed as a way to do that is they paid everybody the same rate per minute. So sometimes you do pay by the minute, but that's kind of an extreme example. So they literally did a deal for each song had to be individually cleared, but the writers on that song agreed to take this rate, whatever rate they set. And that way the editors were free to use 2 minutes of the song, 3 minutes of the song, or 30 seconds of the song, and they would get paid accordingly. So that's kind of an interesting take on it. Usually you can pay less for a minute of a song than 5 minutes of a song, and then everywhere in between. So yes, a full long use definitely costs more. The tricky part is a TV show and a film goes through many edits. So there's the editor's cut, and then there's the producer's cut, and then there's the studio cut, and then there's the network cut. And at any time, that length can shift. I can't wait till the network cut to clear a song. I got to start clearing it when the editor cuts it in, because the next person that sees it, the producer sees it and he can't have that song, he's not going to be very happy, or she. So I have to get ahead of it, So I'm commonly clearing the song thinking it's going to be about 3 minutes, but then if it's 3 minutes and 15 seconds, that's probably okay. But if it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds, that's probably going to be a bump. And if it's 2 minutes, then I overpaid. So you kind of gotta, I prefer to clear for more because labels and publishers never want to go down.
Yeah.
So I prefer to estimate high and just try to get a really good deal. And then if we use less, that's fine. But trust me, if you go an extra 30 seconds, 45 seconds over, they're going to come right back and ask for more money, but they're not going to give money back if you're 30 seconds under.
Yeah.
Funny that way.
Makes sense.
Well, I was going to draw a parallel to some of the work that we have done in the television industry. I was thinking about the relationship between TV stations and ad agencies, and how if they tell you I'm going to deliver 100,000 viewers and you deliver 80,000, you owe the ad agency free commercials. But if you deliver 120, thank you so much.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, what the hell?
One-way streets. I hear a specific dynamic in regards to supply and demand, meaning usually a director or a producer has an idea for a vibe. They come to you and they say, I'd like AC/DC or something similar. Does the inverse ever happen? Do you ever have an artist or a band that's like, hey, James Gunn is about to do a Green Lantern series, and I've got this song about Green Lantern that would just be perfect?
Yeah, that does happen to me, but we've never once used said song because I mean, hopefully no artists are listening to this, but they probably are. They just don't really know what the show requires. They may think my song is perfect, but they're not the ones making the show. So it's really hard for them to have the same perspective as the director, producer, or me. Right. Maybe it'll happen sometime. When I worked on Dead to Me, I probably got the most amount of people like, my song is perfect for this. But I've had very specific things. But when they're too on the nose, you can't really use them. I mean, that's not what most directors and producers want. They don't want. This one producer I worked with used to call it a hat on a hat. Tricia, we don't play country music when we're showing, horses. That's a hat on a hat. We don't do that. So
yeah,
I like that. Yeah.
I think artists feel very much like well, my song's perfect because it's about San Francisco and your show's in San Francisco, but that's probably not what the producers don't want that obvious of a link. They want to be a little more subtle.
I mentioned Garden State earlier. I'm curious if the concept of curating, for a film, that 10 to 15 song group, there's a specific art to that, I think. Have you had any experiences in your career where you got to do maybe a whole film and create a vibe like that?
Probably the closest to that, but I kind of want to throw a question back, which is, do people still, are soundtracks a thing still?
Yes.
I feel like they're not like when Garden State came out, right? I
will answer your question by citing a reference, which is one of my favorite albums from last year was the soundtrack to I Saw the TV Glow. And I feel like every single song I learned a new artist and was blown away by the track. Okay. Like 12 tracks in a row. Just, oh my God, this is wonderful. How fantastic how fantastic a job they did. So yeah, I do think it's more rare now.
Yeah. And that was a TV show, not a movie.
No, it was a film.
TV shows it was a film. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got to check that out and put that on my list. I think, I was going to say the closest that I've been to that, I think for whatever reason, I've tended to work with directors. I'm really good with difficult directors. So people that have a real, and I don't know why, but I do know why. It's because I have a high level of taste too. So I think they, I can always respect what their vision is, even if I can't exactly make it happen, but I try like hell too. So I tend to work with directors that have a strong musical vision, and I'm creatively trying to fulfill that within our budget, which is also a whole creative leap. But I think, Tully, which I already mentioned, ended up having a great soundtrack, and there was a couple unique things on there. And then, but I worked on this film. I knew this was going to happen. I'm going to blank on The Space Between. You should watch The Space Between. It stars Kelsey Grammer as a aging Van Morrison type, kind of washed up. Not that Van Morrison's washed up. Right. He doesn't license anyway, so he can listen. It's fine. Like a rock star that's aging and kind of people have forgotten about him, which people have obviously not forgotten about Van Morrison, but in this particular instance. And he's a little bit of a recluse. So he's a little bit of a, Brian Wilson type character. And then there's a young intern. This is set in 1996. There's a young intern who's striving to become the president of an Island Records type of record label. And he works in the mailroom, but he'll do anything to get to the top. And one of the assignments given to him is go drop this guy. Like, we're trying to drop this guy. He has a lifetime contract. He can't be dropped. Go up to Santa Barbara, wherever he lives in his reclusive mansion, and we need him dropped. And so chaos ensues. And in the course of the film, there's of course a lot of great music from 1996, but the kid also discovers this old album that this guy wrote, which was phenomenal in its era and still holds up, even though everybody's forgotten about it. So we couldn't use any existing songs for that. We had to have them written. We had to have someone write songs that sounded like they were written in 1970.
Cool.
That were amazing enough that you could believe that this kid like slowly saw the power of good over evil, and of course ends up, leaving the record company and just remembering why he loved music in the first place and discovering just how music can change your life. So that was a real journey. And we ended up hiring Rivers Cuomo from Weezer to write the songs. He is a fantastic songwriter, let me tell you.
Wow.
He's really good at it. And we had to give notes. He wasn't precious about it. And one particular song needed specific things to drive like a discovery. And it was really fun. Like, we created an album with Rivers, So, and then we had it recorded in a studio with, which is called New Monkey Studio, just to give a shout out. It's Elliott Smith's old recording studio, and they have a lot of his old gear, but they also have a really cool 70s board. I think it's called a Neve or something. Yeah. So they made it sound like we were recording, in 70s. So that was a really fun project. And I think the soundtrack came out great. I mean, I like the demos the best, which we were able to include some of those on the soundtrack. So just Rivers sent me a demo of like him just with his keyboard or whatever, or guitar, as the case may be, laying down the track. I love those simple versions. I think they're the best. I like the tracks we did as well. And then, Kelsey's a kind of more of a Broadway singer. So we had to try to, plow that back a little bit. But I think we got there in the end. But it's fun. It's a fun movie.
We could sleep in the daylight if we don't know where to belong. We could sing out of key now, nobody would judge us while we're singing our song. I will show you where I hide out, where I lose myself. We could hang in the shadows, never have to talk to no one else. If you come with me, if you come with me, we'll be high as the stars up in the sky, and we'll never crash down with me. We can cruise down the highway, kicking out jams till the sun goes down. We could watch all the stars shining bright as the world keeps spinning around. You could put your hand in my hand, and I would squeeze so tight. We could say adios to the cold, cool world that we leave behind. If you come with me.
More of that, please. Tell us
Yeah.
more about your favorite memories.
So
You know,
many
like-
stories.
yeah, it's just such a lightning bolt
Memories.
moment when it hits, right? Like
Yeah.
I said, we were talking about our favorite moments. For me, I don't know that I've ever been as awestruck watching a film as when in the final scene of the movie Fight Club, you hear the Pixies' "Where Is My Mind" start playing, and you go, "Oh, he's schizophrenic!" Spoiler alert. Sorry, but like, oh my god, like so perfect.
With your feet on the air, your head on the ground. Try this trick and spin it. Yeah. Your head will collapse if there's nothing in it, and you'll ask yourself, where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Way out in the water, see it swimming. I was swimming in the Caribbean. Animals were hiding behind the rock, except a little fish. But they told me where it's trying to talk to me, so I went, where is my mind? Where is my mind?
Those moments are really defining moments for the whole movie and the whole TV series. I've got one in the Jessica Jones series that Marvel did, where I was gobsmacked by how great the fit was. So tell us some of those moments for you. When are you just blown away? Doesn't
I mean,
have
it
to
has
be
to be-
yours.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be mine because I'm too, like I'm too deep in the process to feel. I mean, it does happen, but it's so early on in the process, and then I go through so much, after that then by the time it's all mixed and put together, it's, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I definitely have moments when I'm watching a final mix and it's like, oh, that's fucking awesome. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right?
You're good.
You're fine.
So now I got to try to think of what those moments were, or other people. I mean, the first movie that I remember being just laid out by the music was Harold and Maude.
Oh, right.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that was like, holy shit. And I didn't even, know what I was going to be doing with my life or what a music supervisor was at that point.
Miles from nowhere, guess I'll take my time. Oh yeah, to reach there, look up at the mountain I have to climb. Oh yeah, to reach there, Lord, my body has been a good friend, but I won't need it when I reach the end. Miles from nowhere, I guess I take my time. Oh yeah, to reach it's gonna make me feel good. Yes, I love everything, so don't it make you feel sad? 'Cause I'll drink to you, my baby. I'll think to that. I'll think to that. Miles from nowhere, not a soul inside. Oh yeah.
But that was, I think, the first time that I had a moment with a movie and music where it was like, what is happening right now? What is all this amazing music? Who's the singer? That was very cool. And what are some other moments? I worked on New Amsterdam, and I might have to look up. Do you guys use TuneFind to look up songs?
No, not familiar with it.
Okay, everybody's got to use TuneFind. I don't know why it's not coming up on mine. So TuneFind, some smart person. This later got purchased by a slightly bigger company, but it started, I don't know who started it. But anyway, you can type in any TV show and per episode see the music that's on there.
No way.
And what they did, which is smart, is they gave music supervisors access. So after every New Amsterdam episode mixed, I would send them the list and they would put it in and it says check music supervisor approved. So I can't believe you guys don't know about that. I thought everybody knew about that, but
that's so cool.
So yeah, it's a really fun site. So I'm a big fan of this artist, Luke. His last name is hyphenated, Sital Singh. He's British, but he lived in LA for a long time. And I was just so keen to get his music into New Amsterdam because he has this beautiful voice. It was just everything the producers really usually liked. And wow, 303 songs in New Amsterdam. I mean, that was like 6 seasons. 303 songs just seems like a lot of songs all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I'm looking up the song that we used in the one of the season finales, where two characters are finally, one character runs 10 city blocks to get back and tell this girl that he loves her. And we looked so hard for songs, and this, I thought this one just worked so beautifully, and the editor loved it. And okay, which season was it? Dang it. And then in the end, so there's two showrunners in every show. One of the showrunners was like, I don't know. Can it be bigger? Can it, I feel like it doesn't climax enough. It has a huge build in it. To me, it was like, that's what we kept looking for, something that starts small and then gets bigger as he realizes and runs and etc. Okay, it's got to be the previous season. Yeah, season 3. That'd be it. Season 3. And I was like, just thinking, oh my God, I'd already pitched so many songs. And I was like, I cannot believe that I'm losing this one. And I'm going to, it's the end of the season, right? So you're kind of like got fatigue from the whole thing. 22 episodes in, you're like, can't we just be done? And then I said, or maybe, because what this was a session called the spotting session, where the composer, myself, and the executive producers watch the TV show. And we talk about, mostly they talk about what score should be put in, because that's the last thing to go in. My songs are already done by then, but sometimes they have to interface with the score, etc. And it's just good to have one last, meet up with the producers as you go through the episode. So that was the purpose of it. So this should have been essentially done. It was cleared, we were on budget, and then, it's like going wobbly on me. But luckily, since the closer was there, his name is Craig Wedren, by the way, and he's fantastic. He was in a band called Shudder to Think, if any of you know that band.
Yeah, I heard of that.
And yeah, Craig is a amazing composer, and he's works on Yellow Jackets, I think, now.
Okay.
So I said, Craig, do you think you could? Because I knew that I was pretty sure, I was hoping and betting that I could get the songwriter to agree to this. I said, Craig, could you just layer over the song what the producer's asking for to give it that build? And he was like, yeah, I think I can do that. Do you think it'll be okay with the songwriter? I'm thinking, I'm sure it is. And we made it happen. But it was just like, I just clawed it back from the brink, and it ended up being a really beautiful, beautiful use. If I can, now everybody's like, what is the song? Bear with me. Okay. Oh, there it is. Honest Man by Luke Sutalsing. So that was the end of season 3 in New Amsterdam.
Maybe there's another way around, so we can live this upside down. It's hard now for an honest man. Is that what I am? An honest man. You're the kind who seems too beautiful and out of reach for me. I'm in. I've got you underneath my skin. I fall apart. To look away is getting hard. And maybe we could just let go and say yes when the signs say no. Breathe in, lean to kiss your lips, then my eyes eclipse and it all goes dark. You're the kind who seem too beautiful and without you underneath my skin, I fall apart. To look away is getting hard. Oh, you're the kind who see.
I had another New Amsterdam story. Oh, this was a good moment. It's not exactly related to what you're saying, but probably season 4, I was at the mix, which we don't really do mixes in person anymore, which is a shame. But the final mix is when they do the final levels of all the dialogue, all the music, they put in sound effects. And it's usually a 2 or 3 day process. And usually the producers come and watch, the final cut and give notes. And I like to go watch the whole thing because it's just fun to see it all mixed on a big, sound stage with great equipment. So usually the actors are not there, but in this particular case, the actor that plays Max, the star of New Amsterdam, was there. I met him briefly. I didn't say what I did. I just said my name, and I sit in the back, like behind, the people that are actually working there. And Max would, like he was also spectating, so he was in the back, kind of next to me. And at one of the breaks, he leaned over to the producer who was sitting in front of us and said, "By the way, who is the music supervisor on the show? The music is always so good." And I was sitting right there, and it was like, yes. That was a fun moment. Because you don't usually get, complimented when you're like, people don't know you're actually listening. So then we had a funny chuckle about that. And he's like, "You're sitting next to her." Oh, that was good.
How nice.
That is nice.
Some other, or feel free to ask more questions, or I can try to think of some more fun music moments.
Oh, well, there's always time for fun music moments. But I do have a question about what's your relationship like with the editors?
Yeah, the editors, they got to be your best friends. You got to get them on board early because they can ruin the whole thing, really. Editors are sometimes the best music supervisors. They're the most close to the picture, and they are forming the story, and it helps them form the story if they've got a song to edit to in some cases, especially if it's a scene that's difficult or they didn't quite get the coverage they wanted, then they want a song to move it along. Do they care if it's on budget or can be cleared? Not really. That's like a problem down the line. Okay. It seriously is. Their objective, not offending anyone, is to sell the cut through and get to the next, level. And then they can change the music, take it out as long as my cut is locked, or at least I'm only getting notes on other things about the cut. So, it's a little bit sensitive. Like you have to, because they have, music collections. They can put any song in there. They're usually music fans. Sometimes they make better choices than me. It's definitely happened. And that's fine as long as it's clearable on budget. But if things are getting in there that then at the next edit, I have to say, by the way, this song's in there, but you can't have that. It's not clearable. Or, ELO costs $50,000 even for television. You don't want, you can't have that. That's no fun for me. So it's best to befriend them early, send them music early. I start a pipeline of music as soon as I can, and I just keep sending music. So they're not oblivious to the whole dynamics. They generally prefer, if it's in front of them and it works, they'll use that if I gave it to them. But there's always some out there that want to just, be their own music supervisors, or I don't know. They like picking music too. And that's fine. I'm fine with it as long as I can clear it and it's affordable. It's fine. It's really a very collaborative process, but I think that the best thing is to just always be finding out what they need, getting the music early, sending them a lot of stuff so they have choices, and make sure it's all clearable.
I imagine most of what you are describing is creating something new. You're creating something, artistic. There's a vision. There's a lot of music, and I imagine music supervisors maybe find a niche for themselves in reality TV. I'm thinking like Fox's Masked Singer, where it's kind of a karaoke show, right? Or Name That Tune is another way of looking at it. Help me understand the difference between clearing something for a new creation and an artistic vision versus reality television.
It's interesting. I only started working on reality television recently. I always did dramas, and it's really different than what I thought it would be. It's interestingly, how shall I say this? It's hard. It's more difficult, actually. It's more difficult, and it takes, at least for the editors, because there's no writer. So on a scripted show, like on New Amsterdam, there's a script, and we know where we're going, and we have a rough idea what songs should go in there. And when the editor gets it, he's following, he's definitely performing a craft and requires a lot of skill to edit the whole episode together. But in a reality show, they're pulling the story together right there. They are the writers. So I almost feel like the editors on reality shows is like, in my mind, they're kind of becoming a higher level of talent in a way than editors on scripted. That's crazy. Like when I see what they really had to do to bring this story to the fore, they're sculpting it there, as opposed to there's certainly some sculpting always in any editing studio, even, a movie with a script, TV show with a script. But when you don't have the script, you're really making it happen there, with your craft and what you're doing. So it was interesting. I definitely worked harder on the most recent reality shows than I've ever worked on a scripted show.
Really?
Because, they were music heavy reality shows. So one was this country music docuseries where they interviewed, so it was hosted by Luke Bryan. It's on Hulu. It's called It's All Country. And Luke Bryan was the host, and then he had a guest host on every episode, and they did a behind the scenes, like a deep dive into that artist, but also a behind the scenes on some aspect of the music industry. So Mickey Guyton was one of his guests, who's amazing. And they went into the studio and recorded a single with her. And so they showed the recording process and the mixing process and the laying down different tracks by the band members. So they just showed different parts of the music business. So that part of it's interesting. And then they did little vignettes of unsigned artists. Grant Kaler was the producer, and he's really good at just pulling stories out of people. So he had Winona Judd was one of the guests, and Luke and her, it's Luke Bryan, right? So they're pals, but she's like opening up about her mother's death and that whole day and what happened. And you're just like slightly mesmerized by the whole thing and how profound it was for her. I forget where we're going with all this. Oh, so when we started the show, they said, there's going to be one live performance, one song per episode. Cut to, I'm sending out 80 licenses for 6 episodes.
Holy
wow.
So now that's multiple writers, per song, but still. So because as it came together, it's just tricky. They're always, they're kind of making it up as they go, but then they don't always get the things they think they're going to get. And they just ended up needing a lot more music to pull it together than the editors. God bless them. We want to use this Grammys, footage of Luke Combs and Tracy Chapman singing Fast Car. Oh, that's great. She licenses all the time. No problem. So luckily it was such a positive thing. How could she say no? But she's a person that she commonly denies. So, she's just particular, as she should be. So it just ended up being like, we need this, we need that, we need this, the music budget quadrupled. It was a little crazy. So it is very different in my experience. Now these, again, they were music focused reality shows, and we also like on a on a scripted show, you always have a music editor who is on the mix stage the whole time. And when a song needs to be edited, that music editor cuts it. They're specialists, they're musicians. They really know what they're doing. They have the ability to technically see exactly what songs are in there. So when they make a cue sheet, they are able to, just like the editor would look at his edit in the Avid editor, they can look at the song that's laid in there and see exactly how long it is. So for this really technical thing called the cue sheet, which you have to turn in at the end of every production, they have all that information. There's no music editors on reality shows. So guess who gets to do all that? And I don't have an Avid, so it's a whole complicated thing. So it just was a lot different. And in a way more challenging and kind of fun, more like a bigger mountain to climb. And maybe it's different when it's not, but what you mentioned were also music focused shows. Now, again, on shows like that, I assume, much like the Sing Off, that they pre-clear a lot of songs on a kind of per second basis. But that's still a lot of work because you're clearing a lot of stuff you're not even going to use. So they are very different, just how they come together. I didn't really realize it till I worked on one. And that's another example where the timing changed drastically. I would clear a song for 2 minutes thinking that's plenty of time, and then something else would change. They had to take scenes out because they couldn't clear the signage or something, or the video footage. Suddenly the song is 4 minutes long. So I've learned my lesson about that one on reality shows. I'm going to give myself a lot more cushion. And then commonly they would become interrupted use, which means I'm playing a song. Maybe I'm in a diner and there's a background song, and then I'm cutting to another scene, and then I'm cutting back to the diner. I don't want to pay really 2 uses for that song. It's really 1 use, just there's a scene in between. So that's called an interrupted use. And a lot of, I know it sounds so technical, but that stuff matters to the labels and the publishers. So if it goes in as, if I didn't say there was this interrupted use and then it's interrupted, it just, I have to really be accurate about when I'm describing the use, because they're approving it based on that. Like I have to accurately describe the scene, how long it is, if it's interrupted or not, if it's a background vocal or a featured vocal. Technicalities.
Amazing.
Truly amazing. Well, we are right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, blink and an hour has gone by.
Yeah.
I know. What the heck?
I feel like we just started our chat.
We might need part 2.
Sign me up. This was really, really fun, Tricia. Thank you.
Good. Well, it was easy. It felt natural. You guys are your music fans, obviously, which is always just great to chat with music people.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much again. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Many thanks to Tricia for helping us better understand the role of the music supervisor. Be sure to check out Tricia's newsletter on Substack. We've got a link in our show notes.
This episode of Centre Stage was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. The show was recorded at Thunderlove Studio, where it was engineered by
Daphne Morris,
with help from
Penetration,
edited by
Vic Titball,
with help from
Clem Fandango.
Our theme song is Cynical by Jaguar on Mars. You can stream Jaguar on Mars wherever you stream your favorite music. The songs you heard during this podcast were From the Beginning by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, She Bop by Cyndi Lauper, Fast Car by Tracy Chapman and Luke Bryan, Come With Me by Rivers Cuomo, Where Is My Mind by the Pixies, Miles From Nowhere by Cat Stevens, and lastly you heard Honest Man by Luke Sital Singh. You can stream all of these artists wherever you stream your favorite music.
original music by Mike Pellegrino.
If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Grazie.
Bailey Leaf,
Rob Janicki, Mike Pellegrino, Farina Vella,
S.W. Loudon,
Michael Janicki, Peyton Janicki.
This show's executive producer is Lulu McGillicuddy and is in the loving memory of
Lucas Thunderlove.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always obediently yours.
A Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.